Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video, and today we're going to be taking a look at what I think is going to go down in Knoxville. Of course, Knoxville Regionals is this weekend. I will be in attendance, so if anybody is going to Knoxville and ever wanted to meet me, there you go, there's your opportunity. But yes, Knoxville is this weekend, and I am super excited to see what happens. Obviously, Knoxville's coming off of Orlando and also OCIC, the big one being OCIC. As we know, Azul won with that Lost Box deck. And we're going to kind of talk about where Lost Box could go potentially in the future and what cards could make a resurgence in popularity, as I think we could see a couple cards come back into the meta. But we got to talk about Lugia, the elephant in the room. Lugia is just the best deck going into Knoxville. I mean, it's still the deck to beat. Yes, Azul won with Lost Box, but Lugia is easier for new players to pick up. And Knoxville is still like a 1,200, 1,300 player tournament, so Lugia is still going to be popular because it's an easier deck to play, like, you know, a casual player can't pick up Lost Box and like get day 2 with it that easily because it's a very hard deck to play, and there's like 3 different ways to play it right now. It's kind of insane. And Lugia is just a bit more easier to play. It's a little bit more of an autopilot deck. It's a very easy deck to play, arguably the easiest deck to play in the format. Now, Lugia could see play with the Regan build. Regan's build didn't play the Dunsparce, which was huge. Obviously, Regan almost lost to Rahul in top 4 and was, you know, not having Dunsparce was the reason why he lost to Azul in the finals. I think if you're going to play the build Regan used, you probably want to put in the Dunsparce to help you out a little bit. But there are other Lugia decks. We saw that Lugia Yveltal control deck that played the 3 Yveltal from Celebrations over the Amazing Yveltal, try to outpace Lugia decks, remove their energy, and maybe get rid of the powerfuls and the Aurora so they can't use Yveltal/Lugia. Really cool concept. You could also play the Lugia Greedent deck. That's a deck that's been kind of sneaking under the radar, but I really like the idea of Lugia Greedent. I think Greedent's really cool. I think it's better than Stoutland because Greedent's harder to KO. Unless you're playing against Rayquaza, it's really hard for them to KO a Greedent. You can literally just win the game in 2 attacks with Greedent Lugia. You slap 2 powerfuls on it, take 1 knockout, take another knockout, game's over. So definitely going to be interested to see how Lugia performs. And without a doubt, we'll see, you know, a couple Lugia in top 8. Moving on is Lost Box. Lost Box, of course, is the big elephant in the room right now, as it did win OCIC, and there's a couple of ways to play Lost Box. Of course, you have the straightforward Dragonite build of Lost Box. I guess this is now like Dragonite Lost Box, because Azul won without playing the Kyogre, which is still probably really good, though Lugia is now teching in the Wash Energy Manaphy combo so that you can't Sableye the Manaphy, so it's really hard to Kyogre the Lugia deck. So kind of just playing a more aggressive version using the Dragonite, the Zeraora. Cutting the Kyogre means you don't have to play as much Recycler. You only have 1 in the deck. You can have a bit more room. Interestingly, Azul's not playing at the Raikou in his list, the Raikou V. But I definitely wouldn't be surprised if people just net decked Azul's OCIC when he lists. It's a pretty good deck. It's a very strong deck. It's, you know, it's Lost Box. Lost Box is just a very powerful, broken deck right now. And of course, people are probably going to net deck Azul's deck because it's good. It gets the job done. Dragonite V is a great all-in-one package. It can help with Shred. It has a big one-shot attack. It does a lot of damage, which is very good in certain matchups like Duraludon. Just a very good card in general, and I would definitely expect to see people net deck the Azul deck, as it seems to be the best way to play Lost Box right now. But we do have Pedro's top 4 list to talk about, which is also a very good deck. I mean, Pedro is one of the best players in the game, and of course, he got top 8 with his version of Lost Box using the Zamazenta and the Raikou V and the Snorlax, kind of making it a Zamazenta Lost Box deck, right? Kind of like Azul had the Dragonite. The Zamazenta is like the star of his deck in Pedro's list here, using the Zamazenta. No Dragonite, just optimizing Zamazenta using that Raikou, still having the Sky Seal Stone Raikou. I do like this. I think Pedro's deck is a bit harder to play than Azul's deck. Azul's deck is very straightforward and to the point. Like, that's one thing I like about Azul's list. It's easier to pilot. I mean, you still have a lot of micro decisions, but overall, Azul's list is a bit more easier to pilot because it's very straightforward and to the point of what it's trying to do. Where Pedro's list, I think, requires a little bit more thinking. Like, in Pedro's list specifically, you have to know when to use Zam and when to use Snorlax and when to use Sableye. And I think that's a big deal with Pedro's list compared to Azul's list. Pedro also just playing the 2 Rod, no Recycler, but still playing that Sky Seal. So I think if you were to bring Lost Box to Knoxville, I definitely think that Azul's list is easier to play, but I think Pedro's list is more rewarding to play, if that makes any sense. Both builds are still very good, in all honesty. Then, of course, we got the Rayquaza deck. Now, Rayquaza didn't get top 8, but I still want to talk about it. In fact, the highest placing Rayquaza deck from OCIC actually played a 1-1 Giratina. Now, Giratina might have a potential for a comeback in the standard format. It's not bad right now. I mean, some people say that it auto loses to Lugia, which it kind of does lose to Lugia, but at the same time, it can still beat Lugia. Giratina VSTAR is a very powerful card still. And the idea of putting a 1/1 line in a Rayquaza deck is kind of genius. So the idea behind the Giratina V is that it gives you a shred attacker. So you don't just auto lose to Ice Cube and Flying Pikachu. Not only that, it gives you a good attacker against Regis, and then you might as well just play the V-Star. You already have the V in the deck. You already have the energy required for Giratina anyways. Might as well just play the V-Star. I like it. If you're going to play Rayquaza, I would personally play the Giratina. I think the Giratina is a very smart concept. Again, that big V-Star attack is very good. It's like another... You basically get an extra blow-up attack, right? You have the blow-up Rayquaza, and then you also have the ability to blow up opponents with Star Requiem. However, if you're going to play Giratina, I think you got to play Vacuum, because there's too much value in that V-Star power not to have. I think you probably cut a Raihan, or you cut a Sableye out of the deck. I don't know, actually. Maybe not. I definitely think if you're going to play the Giratina V-Star in the Rayquaza deck, you have to play Lost Vacuum, because that V-Star power is going to be very good. But yeah, these are the 3 Lost Box decks. You got the Zazul list, the Dragonite build, you got the Zamazenta Pedro list, and then you got the Giratina Rayquaza deck. All of them are pretty good. I think Rayquaza is the worst of the 3, but still very solid regardless. And who knows, Giratina could make a resurgence. We got to talk about Regis. Rahul getting top 4 Regis is huge. In fact, he was honestly primed to win the tournament. I definitely think he should have made finals. I mean, he got that DPL, which that probably is what lost him in the finals. I literally think Rahul should have won that tournament, or at least got finals, because like Reagan had no Dunsparce, and Rahul had a turn where he like whiffed an attack. It was just bad, but Regis is insane right now. Here's the problem, is Regis going to be teched against. Now, Regis is a very, very strong deck. It has a very good Lugia. It can beat Lost Box convincingly. It is just a really good deck. The question is it going to be the play for Knoxville? Because will people tech for it? Obviously, people might play Collapse Stadium, Temple of Sinnoh, Goodra, Ice Cube, Flying Pikachu are all very good against Regis. I don't know, man. Like, Regis is just so good that I don't think we have to worry much about it being countered. In a 1,200 player tournament especially, I wouldn't even worry about it. But that's up to me. I'm a fan of Regis. Obviously, no surprise, it is a very, very heavy consideration as to what I might play to Knoxville, and Regis is very high on that list. I don't know, though. It is sketchy because it did so well in OCIC. In fact, it almost won the tournament. It should have won the tournament. If it won the tournament, Regis would suck for Knoxville, but we'll have to see where it goes. I think if you're going to play Regis this weekend, play Yellhorn and maybe a Vacuum. That's probably how you go. Next up is Mew. Mew is still very good. Mew Aerodactyl seems to be the best version. It got, top 8, and Aerodactyl's really good in the Lugia matchup. If you go first against Lugia, you Aerodactyl them out of the game potentially, and you do have Path in the deck too, so you get to play that Mew Path build, so you also get to control them with Path, and that's really good, and sometimes Path buys you a turn, allows you to go Aerodactyl, so I do think that Aerodactyl in Mew is very powerful, and maybe the optimal way to go. However, Meloetta Mew is making a resurgence too, so we'll have to see where this kind of leads, but Aerodactyl seems to be on a bit of a comeback in a weird way, because I feel like Aerodactyl's still insane, and there's definitely going to be a lot of Lugia in Knoxville, so it could be a good reason to play Aerodactyl. Next up is Vikavolt, another deck that I think is very in a very primed position. Now, this Vikavolt list is the highest placing list from OCIC, I think, but it doesn't play any Aerodactyl. It's actually just opting for Vikavolt and Raikou, just trying to be very aggressive, very tempo-based. We did see Vikavolt win against the Lost Box deck in the Seniors Division, and that was a convincing game. So Vikavolt seems like a solid pick. It's one of those decks that seems like it's just a solid play all around. Doesn't seem like it's a bad play by any means, and it's probably just something you can pick up and do well with. So I like it. And if you're this deck can probably beat Azul's deck, right? The main premise is you just slap those items away, and with Lost Box being popular, there's a reason to probably play Vikavolt to Knoxville. Then, of course, Goodra. Goodra could get good, too. Now, I don't know if Goodra is a good deck, in all honesty. I personally don't know if Goodra's a good deck, but Goodra's in one of those positions right now where it very well could be a good deck for Knoxville. It's still a deck people are very sold on in that it's a very good deck in the format. A lot of the Japan players did bring Goodra to OCIC, and this is the highest placing Goodra list, I think, from OCIC. Goodra is a very interesting archetype. Is it good? I'm not sure. A lot of people will swear that it's a bad deck. Some people say it's actually a good deck, and it's a great play. The one thing I'll say about Goodra, it has a very good matchup versus Regis, almost an auto win versus Regis, or a very favorable matchup, at least an 80-20 matchup spread. It's just that good. Goodra, its matchup spread is weird, though. Its Mew matchup's pretty rough. It also doesn't have the greatest Lugia matchup. But it's still a good deck regardless. And I think that Goodra definitely could be a pretty decent play for Knoxville. We'll just have to see. This build plays the Marnie over the Roxanne. I think the Roxanne build of Goodra is better, but if you're very scared of something like Reggie's and even Azul's deck, like I definitely think that there's reason to play Goodra to Knoxville. We'll have to see where that goes. And then, of course, we got to talk about Control, another deck that a lot of the Japan players brought to OCIC. Control is still in a fine spot. I mean, it probably beats Lugia. The Snorlax can be very annoying, though. And then, of course, the Ice Cube might be insane this weekend since, obviously, it beats Dragon. It can beat Lost Box without Dragonite, and it also can beat other decks, too, like Reggie's. Dragonite could be tricky, though. Yellhorn could be good against Reggie or against Dragonite, so I don't know. We'll have to see. But Ice Cube doesn't seem bad in this format. Again, that Rayquaza matchup is scary if they're playing the Giratina, which you have no way to know if they're playing Giratina, which is the only problem with playing Control. Control's kind of in a weird spot. I personally don't know if I would play it. It seems like more and more people are respecting it, but certainly not a bad call. You can maybe snake a few wins against Reggie's, where Hoozless had no out to the Ice Cube at all. You just have to hope he just beats it with, like, Rope Boss or something. Duraludon. Yeah, good old Arcdura. I mean, doesn't really move any spots. I don't think it's a bad deck. If anything, it maybe gets worse because Azul's deck does have a good Duraludon matchup because of the Dragonite is so good. However, if you're going to play Arcdura, you got to at least play a couple choice belts. One, you need the belt for Control and Eldegoss, and two, you need it for Dragonite. So if I were to play Duraludon, I would probably play at least one or two belt in my list because it's just too good not to play. It's just weird, though. It has, like, one of those weird Lugia matchups where, like, it doesn't even have a good Lugia matchup. It's just kind of just awkward against Lugia, so we'll have to see where Arcdura goes, but it's still a good deck, and it's just kind of just stays stagnant as one of the decks. It's literally one of the decks in the format. Not, it's one of the decks, not one of the best, not one of the worst. It's just one of the decks in the format. Then we got to talk about Flying Pikachu. In the OCIC video, I said Pikachu was a good call for the tournament, but unfortunately Pikachu didn't take off like I wanted it to. But now could be the chance. Again, with Reggie's and Lost Box being popular, Pikachu fares better against Dragonite. Ice Cube gets KO'd by Dragonite fairly easily with Shred. Pikachu, not so much. When they're doing 50 with you with Dragonite, your Pikachu is just sitting there laughing. Now, this Vulpix Pikachu deck seems pretty cool. Again, Vulpix can be good against Goodra. The only issue I have with this deck is that it does probably struggle against Lugia, because, like, I mean, Lugia is just such a dumb card, right? They can still insta-KO you. They can find Vacuum at the right moment, KO your Pikachu. They have Dunsparce. Vulpix is okay, but, like, they'll still attack you with, like, Lugia V or Stoutland against Vulpix, and I'm not sold on this deck. I really want this deck to be good, but I don't know if I could bring it into a meta with Lugia. It's just tough. If I were to play this deck, you probably at least need to play a 1/1 Aerodactyl, which, I don't know, if you already heard, I was going to play an Arcpika Vulpix deck to Orlando originally, and my list had the Aerodactyl. I didn't play V-Guard. But I mean, if you're going to play this deck, you could probably get away with playing V-Guard Energy too. It doesn't seem like a bad idea to play V-Guard in this deck also, though, so it might be good. Palkia is another, like, under-the-radar deck. There's people that swear that it's good, and then there's people that are saying, yeah, Palkia might be falling off. But Articuno's still insane in the format. And also, Crabominable is still kind of cool, too. And the Ice Cube, once again, there's value in playing Ice Cube this weekend if you're expecting Reggie's and Lost Box. Again, it's just Ice Cube's not as good against Dragonite, which is a bit of an issue. But yeah, overall, Palkia seems like an okay deck. It's still a very good deck, and it can be very, very hard to play against, if that makes any sense. It's a deck that, like, because of the amount of options it has, it's hard to actually play against Palkia, right? Especially when there's so many one-of and different tools and tricks it can do. Palkia can be very hard to play against, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that makes it an intimidating deck in the format is it's hard to play against. It's very hard to play, though. I will say that. For someone who doesn't know the matchup very well, Palkia is very hard to play against, but somebody who doesn't master Palkia can be hard to play, which is ironic. And we talked about Giratina. Now, this is a Giratina list I found on Limitless playing Raikou V. I don't know about the Raikou, or the Amazement Raikou, sorry, but Giratina definitely doesn't seem like a terrible deck right now. In my opinion, it seems like an okay deck. I think, obviously, its Lugia matchup could be very sketchy, but I don't know, Giratina's kind of cool, man. The insta-KOs it does against Goodra and Duraludon is really good. It does a lot of damage, one-hit KO stuff. The way the meta is shifting, it kind of primes for a decent comeback for Giratina, so we'll have to see. But honestly, I would be surprised if we maybe saw a Giratina deck do well in Knoxville. I think it's definitely a deck people might want to... It's an under-the-radar deck, but that's kind of what the point of this segment of the video is, talking about the under-the-radar stuff like Palkia and Giratina. It's just flown under the radar. We could see a little bit of a Giratina resurgence in Knoxville, especially as you saw in that Rayquaza deck using Giratina V's already there. And you can play the V-Star in the deck. There you go. And maybe someone will do well with Giratina V-Star. And then we want to talk about the Vikavolt Palkia deck. This is another under-the-radar deck that's surprisingly good. It's Vikavolt but with a Palkia in it. And the Palkia actually gives you a lot of really cool plays. Palkia is a very strong attacker in a lot of matchups, and Star Portal is insane. So against something like Lost Box, right, you can kind of Vikavolt lock them, and then you can maybe come in with a Star Portal Greninja play, cripple their board so badly they have no way to win. There's so many cool plays you can make with Palkia, it's kind of insane. I really like the idea of Palkia VSTAR in Vikavolt. I think it's a very creative concept. The problem with Palkia, it doesn't really fix the Lugia matchup. At that point, Aerodactyl is better to play because Aerodactyl does fix the Lugia matchup, where then you get access to Aerodactyl for Lugia. Palkia is okay against Lugia, but there's also like Lugia Flying Pikachu, which is also awkward, and like Raikou Belt is also still out there, which can KO your Palkia. So I'm not sold on the Palkia. It's not the greatest way to beat Lugia, but it definitely isn't a terrible option. It also does help in other matchups. Again, Subspace Swell is very good, and Star Portal can be very cool too when combined with like Radiant Greninja. And yeah, I think Vikavolt Palkia is a really cool under the radar deck that could potentially see play, because I like the concept. I think it's cool. But yeah, there you go. That is my Knoxville predictions video. Again, I think Lost Box is going to be insanely popular this weekend. And of course, we're probably going to see a lot of Lugia too. And we'll have to see if we see any spicy Lugia decks do well. I hope we do. Flying Pikachu Lugia is also starting to kind of bubble into popularity. But then, of course, Gradient Lugia could be kind of cute. So I'm curious to see what happens this weekend. I'm excited for Knoxville. I'm obviously, once again, I'm going to be there. So if y'all are going to be there and you haven't said hi to me yet or never met me before, there's your opportunity. That'll be it for me on my video here talking about Knoxville. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you haven't subbed to the second channel yet here, make sure to click that subscribe button down below. I've been posting a lot of post-rotation content and all that good stuff. So if you want to catch up on the future, check it out. But that'll be it for me, and hope y'all enjoyed. And yeah, I'm excited for Knoxville, man. It's going to be a crazy tournament. It's going to be interesting to see how it does. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Knoxville will be interesting. Very interesting. Catch y'all later. Bye-bye.